Welcome to Life in Biology. I'm Dr. Joel Graff, and this is episode number 13. This is going to be an introduction to immunology video, and we're going to be talking about the three big challenges that the immune system must address. This is the beginning of an immunology series, and this spring I will be teaching immunology at Montana Tech. The course number is BIOB 410. However, a lot of the information for my course can be found at lifeinbiology.weebly.com. I'll have links to videos, the syllabus for my students, and then other additional relevant information for that class. The textbook that we're going to be using for this class is Kubi Immunology, the 7th edition, and I'll have a link to that in the show notes. So this video series is going to serve as a study guide for my students, or for anyone that is interested in immunology. And we will roughly be following the order of topics as are presented in the Kubi Immunology textbook. So the big challenges for the immune system. I've recently been reading a book called Immunology by William E. Paul, and it's a great book that digs into the history of how we thought about the immune system and the big experiments that happened, so kind of right up my alley. It's meant to be for laymen, or written in layman's terms, but I kind of think that you might be in over your head if you haven't delved into the field of immunology before to read this book. But I do like how the first half of the book is set up, and that Dr. Paul, he describes what he calls 3 laws of the immune system, but I'm calling them challenges. One, the immune system needs to be universal. That means be able to respond to a huge variety of things. The immune system has to be able to be tolerant of some things, and we'll talk about that in a second. And then the immune system has to be appropriate. You can have different types of situations that the immune system needs to address, and the type of response has to be tailored to that issue. So for universal, originally in the late 1800s, early 1900s, there was when immunology was still, the field of immunology was still in its infancy, it was thought that the immune system had a limited diversity of things that it could recognize and respond to, and this goes along with the antitoxin model that Emil von Behring was the advocate for. However, currently we know that there's huge antigenic diversity that the immune system can respond to. It's nearly infinite, the amount of variations that the immune system can do to recognize things, and that itself is a very interesting story, and that'll be a big part of what we talk about in this class. So I mentioned the word antigenic, so I just want to take a second to talk about antigen and immunogen. So an antigen is a molecule that can be recognized by the immune system, and it's possible the immune system will respond to it, but it's possible that that molecule does not have the properties for resulting in an immune response. The word to describe an antigen that can cause an immune response is an immunogen, and this is a molecule that causes an immune response. There are examples of where you want to create an immune response to something that is not an immunogen. So what you can do, and a classic example of this is a hapten, which is just a small molecule. You can connect your hapten or your other small molecule or your other non-immunogen to an immunogen, and if they're physically connected and then the immune system responds to that, you'll mount a response, and at least part of the immune response will be towards that thing that was not originally an immunogen, but because it was linked to an immunogen, you'll get responses to it. The second challenge for an immune response is to be tolerant. So the first thing you'd want your immune system to know is not to attack yourself, right? So it needs to be on guard for anything that's out of the ordinary, but you don't want it to attack yourself. When that happens, it's called autoimmunity. The classic example of that is type 1 diabetes, where your immune system responds to your certain cells in your pancreas that produce insulin, and if it kills off those cells, then you become diabetic because you can't produce the insulin, and so then you have to take supplements, insulin supplements. Another idea is that you don't want your immune system to attack commensal bacteria. And so commensal bacteria, what I mean by that, are bacteria that are constantly on your skin, bacteria that are in your mouth, in your entire length of your digestive system. Microbiota is all the bacteria in your large and small intestine. It's a hot topic in biology these days, but you don't want to respond to that because it's there all the time. So it's almost as if these commensal bacteria are part of you, and you don't want to attack them. And you don't want to attack non-pathogenic particles or foods. And a good example of this is allergies. So pollen, if you breathe in pollen, if you don't have allergies, your immune system breaks that pollen down. There's no problem. If you have allergies, you get an allergic response. There's also food allergies. So there's certain things you would want the immune system to respond to, and certain things you don't want the immune system to respond to. And that's what makes the field of immunology so interesting, is how the immune system is set up to carry out the role of being able to respond to all sorts of things, but then being smart enough to attack only the things you want it to attack and not things you don't want it to attack. And then the third issue is having an appropriate immune response. So I work a lot with thinking about host-pathogen interactions, and so this is typically in the realm of dealing with microbes, pathogenic microbes. So there's viruses, bacteria, fungus, helminths, protozoan. These are all different categories of microbes that can cause pathology or in you, and you do not want you want your immune system to take care of these, but the lifestyle of a virus within your body is way different than the lifestyle of a helminth. So the immune system has to be tailored. Also, there's times when your body functions are a little out of whack, and here I'm calling it homeostatic disruption. So a break from the norm, basically, would be another way to say that. Cancer, you definitely want your immune system to attack cancer. Wounds and necrosis. So if you get a wound and a bunch of cells get damaged, your immune system comes in, cleans up the necrotic material, and helps orchestrate the wound healing response. And then this is not necessarily disruption, but a lot of your cells have a certain lifespan, and when they hit the end of their lifespan, they go through a process called apoptosis, and that's a programmed way of dying. And your immune system wants to clean up those cells, and because it's a normal process, you don't want the immune system to respond inappropriately to that. And also, the strength of the immune system has to be measured. If it's a full-scale infection or not, a minor number of microorganisms, you don't want your body to go all out when you have a very small concern. So anyway, those are the things we're going to be talking about in the immunology course, and I welcome everyone to follow along as we work through these major challenges. Talk to you soon.